Time for a spiritual awakening. Time for a spiritual awakening.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spiritual Awakening 101. My name is Reverend Jerry Yaakov, and I'm your host. Today, we're going to be reading out of a little book by Julia Cameron called Heart Steps. Here's a copy of the book by Julia Cameron. She's most famous, I think, for her other book, The Artist's Way. But this is a Prayers and Declarations for a Creative Life, subtitled To Heart Steps by Julia Cameron. And we'll start with an entry on page 49. She quotes Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of Science of Mind. And it says, "Today I live in the quiet, joyous expectation of good." Well, let me comment on the Ernest Holmes quote. Living in the joyous expectation of good. An expectation of good. This is a state of mind, of course, that Ernest Holmes taught most vociferously. State of mind is everything. Jesus quoted as saying, "As a man thinketh, so is it done unto him." So our thinking, of course, determines exactly what our experiences are and what our perceptions are, and determines our speech patterns as well. Thinking makes it so. Thinking really is a thing. It manifests, it demonstrates, it materializes. Thinking is a very important aspect of our co-creative choices that we make with God. God gave us the ability to co-create with God, and the choice starts with the kind of thinking. Now, there's two kinds of thinking, negativity and positivity. Ernest Holmes, of course, and Julia Cameron and myself, we're all teaching positive thinking. Positive thinking is in alignment with the Holy Spirit of God. God has given us that positive aspect. Everything that we look at, we determine to be good and very good. This is a quote, of course, right from the Bible. God looked at what he had created in 6 days and declared it to be good and very good. And we can do the same with our creations or co-creations. Co-creation means that I'm using God's power. It's not my own, but it is my own in the sense that God gave it to me. So the Creator gave the created, which is you and me, the ability to co-create with God. I am sustained by the power of this God. God sustains me. God empowers me. God gives me the very ability that I have to think. And then in the thinking patterns that I develop through my practices, I can either create negatively or create positively. And that's the choice that we want to make here. So what Ernest Holmes is saying is today, meaning that there is only the time of right now. This is the eternal always. And of course, we're focusing on being in the present moment. That's the highest level of creating and using time, is in the present moment, today. And we could say, contract it down to even more, in this instant, in this very instant, I live, meaning I'm expressing consciousness. I'm expressing my energy, my chi, that which God created me as and is sustaining me as, the expression of light and love. I live in the quiet, joyous expectation of good. Quiet means that I've turned off the negative thinking, that raucous shrieks of the ego. The ego always thinks and is influencing me in a negative way. Always. There's never anything positive about the ego. It's always self-serving, which means that it excludes God and it excludes other people. And in that exclusionary thought pattern of the ego, that negativity, is our suffering. It only means that to ourselves we're thinking insufficiency, scarcity, an inability to get what we want, a frustration with the way things are. But of course that's not true, because if we change our thinking, then we have everything and we recognize God created us. in its likeness and image. And that means whole and complete. Everything that God gave us really is everything that we'll ever need. It's manna from heaven. We are made in the likeness and image of a whole and complete, wholly divine, unconditionally loving, filled with light God. And that is the truth. And that is who we are. Where God ends and we begin is indecipherable. There's no separation. So again, today I live in the quiet, joyous expectation of good. And what is my good? Well, good could mean any variety of things and categories that we can identify. Are we living healthily? Are our bodies an expression of our health? Are we living in a sense of vibrancy, in a sense of power? Are our bodies serving the purpose that God has given us? What is the purpose that God has given us? Well, to communicate love. Are we able to do that with our bodies, with our facial expressions, with the hugs that we can give, with the creative ability that we have to write and journal and express and create poetry and music and art and drawings, and create money, abundance, prosperity, not just for us. That would be a useless form of a journey towards abundance. What we want is a journey towards the useful goal of abundance, where everybody is sharing in their wildest but most beautiful expectations of good. Are they able to feed their families comfortably? Are they able to house themselves, clothe themselves in a way that they are not uncomfortable and exposed to the elements? Are they able to be everything that God would be in their hearts and minds? This is what's important. And then, of course, the higher aspects of serenity, harmony, peace. Are the minds of others prosperous and abundant, knowing that they can pay their bills, that they can buy for their children, that they can educate themselves? All of those things are, of course, beginnings, and I'm thinking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. As you get up that ladder of hierarchy, or that pyramid, so to speak, the higher needs need to be met as well for full abundance and prosperity. And that would be a sense of harmony and well-being. But again, it's also important. So let's again go through the good. Do you have love relationships that are fulfilling? Do you have people in your life that you show love, show forgiveness, show tolerance and patience? Are you showing them that you are in love as love would be? And if that's the truth, and you're experiencing that you're loving them, they're loving you, that's your good. Excuse me. I think it's important also that we have a sense of creative self-expression. Are you doing on behalf of God? God wants you to express love and light. Now, do you have a job that is expressing a service that in some way focuses the good from God to other people and what they need? This would be right livelihood. Now I'm thinking of the Eightfold Path in Buddhism. Do you have right livelihood? Are you concentrating particularly on serving people, creatively expressing yourself in a way that you are the eyes and ears and the hands and feet in the, in the physical world of God itself? This is the truth. This is what we're here to do. Well, enough on the good for the present moment. Let's go into Julia Cameron's writing. This is titled, My Soul Has Patience and Contentment. It says, I am patient. I am able to live with ambiguity. I am able to allow situations to evolve and alter. I am able to await outcomes. I tolerate quiet periods of not knowing, while solutions emerge and present themselves. I do not force solutions. I expect the successful working out of difficulties and differences. My heart is wise. It knows when to act And when not action is the action to take. I trust my heart. I trust the power of my contentment and my containment. Containment is a reference, I think, to being in and one of God. When you're contained within the space of God itself, then you know true love. You know patience. You know tolerance. You know the giving. You know the receiving are one in truth. I'm thinking now of A Course in Miracles, which says to give and to receive are one and the same and in the truth. And this is because when you give, you're always giving to yourself. All minds are joined. All entities are joined in the great sonship and fellowship and kinship that God created. And so we know that we're all one in spirit. And so as I give to spirit, I'm receiving as spirit. That's who I am. That's who you are. And as I give to you, I'm giving to myself. And again, it's in the present moment, in the holy instant when I forgive you and express love to you and allow that love to come through my mind and my heart. What I'm doing is being a channel. I'm being the messenger and agent of God. God is, I am. And in that non-dualistic view, the ontological expression of God itself, you and I are one. And there is an everlasting immortality in that oneness. I may change form, but not at the level of essence or content. The level of the essence of who I am, that's immortal. Form changes. You may change in form. Of course we do. However, again, the essence and the content of what you are is godlike. It's light, it's love, it's chi, it's a spiritual, ontological essence, a pulsation, an energy. This divinity is so energizing that it fulfills all of God's expression of immortality and eternality. And that is love. That is what love is. Love is an expression of all of it. And again, from A Course in Miracles, to give all to all is our highest expression of self, true self. To give all to all. Don't withhold. Don't be, withholding of the love, of the energy, of the God that's within you. So I want to go into a little further and more in depth what a life fulfilled looks like. What is it that a person, you and I, a sentient being, an expression of God itself, does during the day, each day? And again, I'm thinking in terms of A Course in Miracles, where there's a practical explanation of what does a teacher of God, which is each of us, does during its day, his or her day. Well, let's look at that a little more closely, and I'll base it on my own experience as well. Constantly learning is one big aspect, listening to the voice for God. This is a must. It can be in a formal setting of prayer and meditation, or it can simply, as you're going about your day, open your right mind to the voice for God or the Holy Spirit. What is the God of your understanding speaking to you about? What is it filling your mind with intuitively and overtly, as well as a still small voice? What is it teaching you? How are you understanding God's voice directing you from the moment you wake up in the morning till the moment you go to sleep at night? This is how God's teachers spend their day, listening to the voice for God. We don't make decisions on our own. We're always making decisions in alignment with God's will. So I make a decision, but the decision is to listen to God's decision, to God's will. Once that's been attained, then I know exactly where to go, what to say, who to say it to, because I'm aligned with God. This is the nature of being an expression of God itself. That's who I am. And so I have to listen. I have to be in attunement with. And being in attunement with is the same as being in the atonement. The atonement is not atoning for sins. It's being at one with the guiltlessness and sinlessness and efficacy that I am as God's representative and agent. I'm an angel. You're an angel. We're a teacher of God. This is exactly what's necessary. And so, God's children, you and I, spend our days listening first in the quiet. And of course, that's Ernest Holmes' statement, listening in the quiet for expectations of good. You could say listening in the quiet for expectations of God's voice to direct me what to do for good. And good always includes everybody else, with no one and nothing left out. There can't be any exceptions. Now, in the physical world, we don't condone bad acts, but we always condone the actors. We look past the acts to the actors themselves. Are they expressing love or maybe calling for love? This is the only two possibilities. Anybody who's a bad actor, so to speak, and is acting, improperly, is calling for love, or else they wouldn't be expressing and acting badly, immorally, with misconduct. Nobody does that when they're in their right mind, in God's mind. This is the truth. And so we have to be discerning. As God's teachers, we have to recognize during our day that which we're doing, which is consistent with God's decisions for us, and also look at others and see if they're speaking and behaving consistent with God's purpose for them, which is the same as our purpose. And if not, we forgive and we excuse, and we bless and we forgive, and we make sure that we're an example of how God would have us be, so that other people can see that in our kindness, in our loving expressions of God. This is what we need to do, not criticize and chastise people, because that rarely goes over well. Giving somebody a wagging finger and projecting guilt and anger onto them is not effective. We are to exemplify what we are to do, not tell them what to do, unless we're asked. If we're having a heart-to-heart discussion with somebody based on their request, this would be something else. People can ask very forthrightly for information, for guidance, for mentorship, and that would be perfectly okay, as long as I, as the mentor, am checking in with my higher power, which I call God. Now I'm referring to 12 steps. God is, in my understanding, love. Am I expressing love to the mentee as his mentor? This is also consistent with what a teacher of God does and how God's teachers spend their day, exemplifying the highest in them, the love that they are. This is the truth, and the truth sets us free. And it also, being loving, casts out all fear. This is everything that we've ever wanted. This is everything that we are created to do. And then as our function keeps expressing as loving and as kind and as a blessing in the world, we raise our consciousness, we raise our mindfulness and our discernment to a point where we're no longer really functioning solely in the world. We recognize that our minds are in heaven and our bodies are functioning in the world as tools to express the heavenly infusion that we receive from God. This is the truth. Our minds are in heaven and our bodies are here in the three-dimensional world to be examples, to be the light, to shine it. And this is the truth that gives our days a purpose. So let's talk a little bit about your purpose and my purpose. Well, we've been talking basically about being a teacher of God, being an angel, being an expression of God's love. Are you the eyes and ears and the hands and the feet of God itself? Are you in the body, functioning consistent with the mind being in heaven? If that's where you're at, and that's how you're functioning, then you're a giving person. You're a person of enthusiasm. You're a lively person. You're somebody who's expressing life and life more abundantly. Jesus came to fulfill the law, to fulfill life and live it more abundantly. And by that, I think he meant that there's this abundance, there's this well-being, there's this health, there's this joie de vivre, there's this raison d'être, there's this reason for being that fulfills us. And there's this light, this aura that comes from our minds and expresses through our third eye, as well as our visual, physical eyes. This is all from God itself. And you are an expression of God. Speaking from A Course in Miracles, you are as God created you. Say that with me now, but we'll put it in the first person. I am as God created me. I am as God created me. I am as God created me. Can you feel the power in that? Can you feel the freedom? Can you feel being unshackled from all of the blocks and the restraints that a false-minded person, a person who's mired simply in the body and the world would feel? Because you are now open to infinity. You're opening your God mind. I am as God created me. In mind, my mind is in heaven. That's who I am. That's what I am. God is expressing through me as me. That's what you're doing. I am as God created me. I trust God. I place the future in the hands of God. I know God is blessing me. I know God is healing my mind, my body, my soul. I am forever evolving. Forever evolving means that there has to be an immortality. Forever is immortal. Forever is eternal. So we know this and we express it and we love it. This is the truth, and the truth has set us free. Now I'm going to go on to another reading. My soul is rich beyond my knowing. Well, this is an identification of the truth. I am a soul. My mind is in heaven. My mind is the soul which resides in heaven, and it never leaves heaven. And it is the mind that directs vis-a-vis God's instructions and decisions and love and light and omniscience, everything that I then feed to my brain on the three-dimensional level in my body. So the mind directs the brain and the body, but the mind takes its direction from God itself in heaven. So you see there's a direct pipeline, if you will. And my soul is rich beyond my knowing. This refers to the evolution of my mind and my soul. I'm broadening my understanding. I'm broadening my awareness and my awakening. I'm arriving at, now I'm thinking of the Buddhist tradition. I'm becoming the lotus blossom. I'm becoming the Buddha that's within me. I am becoming the Christ that's within me. Well, let's see what Julia Cameron has to say about my soul is rich, abundant, prosperous, well-being, beyond my knowing. I honor the Creator within me. I carry riches, jewels, and abundance. I have a bountiful heart. I am dowried by love. I like that expression. I'm dowried by love, by compassion, by companionship. I act with generosity. I am sourced in God. All goodness flows to me and through me. There is no limit to what I can accomplish. I am the hand of life flowing toward greater life. My creations are the creations of the Creator within me. I create with freedom and power. I create with bliss and excitement. Through me and in me, the powers of the universe move to expansion. I am within that power, expanded by that power. It is within me. It is expanded through me. As the universe is powerful and good, so too am I. Do you get the sense, and I mean at the deepest level of your mind and your soul, that you are an expansion of God's love, God is forever expanding out into infinity as light and love. And you are an expression of God. That's the truth. God remains a creator, a source, knowledge, wisdom, peace, original creation, the beginningless and the endless, the Ein Sof. That would be the beginningless and the endless in the Hebrew tradition. I am as God creates, as an expression of the beginningless and the endless. I am the love that God is. Remember, I am as God created me. You are as God created you. Remember this and appreciate it, because that is the truth. And we know this to be true. How do we know it to be true? Because our hearts and our minds resonated from heaven above. This is what the Lord has declared. It is good and very good. And the heavens are split, and the light comes through. This is why the heavens are split, so that the light can come through as you. You see, the clouds part, the heavens part, and you are expressed as God's Son. You are the Son that Jesus was. Jesus says, you'll do what I have done and more. And what he meant by that was, given that you are so far as an expansion of God, you're expressing it to the infinite. And so you'll express it to your infinitude, as I've expressed my infinitude. And you'll do so much more, given your role and function that God has ordained for you. There's no real comparison. It's not one of those competitive, egoic things. Well, what I did was great, but you'll be even greater. It's just that you are an individualized expression of God itself. And being God itself, you're going to express to the greatest degree that you will. So it'll be even greater than I, just by the sense that you are an individualized, loving expression of God. And I'm an expression of God. And Jesus was an expression and is an expression of God. And he can do all things in the Father. We can do all things in the Father. And the Father is continuously feeding us, nurturing us, nourishing us, nurturing us to do more. But not more in a physically measured sense, but more in a loving way. More light, more power, more enthusiasm, more soulfulness, beyond our present knowing. That's how we'll do more, because it'll be beyond our present knowingness. We're always going beyond our limits. This is the truth, and the truth has set us free. Well, I think we're going to end here. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been my pleasure. Namaste, shalom, and we'll see you next time. And remember, we are as God created us.